Hello and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. I'm Ryan Hamann.
I'm Ryan Quintal.
Or HNQ, as we are forced to call ourselves. That is our eternal shame. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. I've got a weird idea. Q has something up his sleeves right now.
Yes, keeping it close to the chest.
And we have a listener submission as well that you'll hear right at the end there. And so we've got 3 brand new pitches, 3 never before heard ideas for video games that do not, maybe could not, and definitely should not exist. So let's get right into it. I will lead off today with a strange pitch. This one was just kind of a funny idea that I had. And I know that we introduced this podcast as, we aren't Cool Games Inc. This isn't like an improv show. This isn't like a comedy show. But I think that, comedy is still a genre we can explore in video games. And so I don't want to say everything has to be deadly serious. Like, we can do things that are like daft and stupid, but
hey, someone made The Legend of Matt Hazard. Someone made Gex the Gecko.
Yeah.
I think that's all legitimate.
Yeah. And so I'm going to be pitching an idea that seems frivolous and seems crazy, but it's our job to find the real workable game at the center of that and see where that takes us. So this idea is Pokemon Snap, but for crime scene investigation.
Oh, all right.
So the pitch is that you are a top detective in your precinct. You are this kind of like film noir, 1940s, long trench coat, the fedora, but you're also super busy because you're kind of the guy on top. And so you really only have time to just like roll through a crime scene. And so the way that you do it is that you are in this little like cart, this little motorized cart, and you just wheel around, and the police, the first responders, set up like a dolly track for you to take you throughout the crime scene.
The on-rails crime scene, yeah.
It works like Pokemon Snap, that you have to keep moving, you can't slow down, but, as you're cruising past the crime scene, then it's up to you to take photos of the chalk outlines or the bodies or the bullets on the ground or just anything that catches your eye. But it's all, it's a dark environment, potentially, dark alleyways or whatever,
yeah.
And some of these details can be really
gotta have a good
small
lens.
and hard to see, so you kind of have to have a good eye, but you also have to be quick because you don't have a lot of time to just like really meditate on the crime scene, and try to kind of like piece together what happened in your mind as you go. But most of all, you're trying to get photos. That's the most important thing. But like in Pokemon Snap as well, I was kind of exploring these mechanics a little bit more. You have the option to throw like rocks and apples in that game. Is that kind of the way that it goes? But you can throw like food or whatever to like the witnesses to get them to talk to you, or lure a rat out like you would in Pokemon to get it to knock something over, which would present like, different side of the crime scene that you hadn't seen or whatever. And then you are judged at the end of each round by literally a judge who tells you whether or not they have enough evidence to convict the one who is being accused of perpetrating the crime.
Yeah, put together.
So, let's go ahead and start the clock on that one.
Wow. I love this idea, Ryan. I really do. Sorry, H, I love this idea. This sort of CSI crime snap investigation, right?
That's pretty good.
So one of the things I love about Pokemon Snap is there's not a ton of levels, so you're obviously replaying these levels time and time again. Mm-hmm. And to think that there is going to be some bait or something that is maybe going to get like the guy who did it to like stick his head out of a bush or something and be kind of caught, or maybe you find his shoe as he tried to run away or she tried to run away. That is so compelling. I mean, I imagine that the imagery is going to be on the cartoonish side of like, I've got kind of a Team Fortress aesthetic in my head, if that makes sense.
Okay. And the way that I was picturing it is whenever I think about like comedy in video games, I always kind of come in with the mantra that the more seriously the world takes itself, the more fun it is to break. And so I was thinking like, ultra gritty, realistic, Unreal 4 with the light reflecting off of the raindrops and everything like that.
Arkham.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's even more interesting. I think that there's, I don't know, the cliche in a sort of noir detective novel. I feel like there's always rain introduced at some point, and I don't know if you can like use reflections or something to your advantage in there.
Well, there's something about in Pokemon Snap, and not everything has to go back to that original game. It's more of a starting point than anything. But in Pokemon Snap, you can photograph optical illusions that look like Pokemon. And that gives you like, special bonuses at the end of it. And so you've found like mountains that look like a Doug trio, or if you lined up some industrial parts in front of a spotlight, then it'll cast a shadow that looks like a pincer. And so I'm kind of thinking there could be like little things you can set up like that would cast a shadow on a wall or something. And I almost kind of wonder if you could like fabricate evidence that would like solidify your case and would give you big bonuses towards the defendant being convicted.
You literally want to cook those books.
Yeah. But of course you could set up a shadow that looks like the crime in progress and say, I just happened to get this photograph at just the right time. But, obviously it's false evidence. And so you can do with that what you will.
I think there's something too when you're on rails as well. The fact that the crime scene is going to have, like, crime scenes can be very dynamic places in it that there are crowds that may come and go. There are emergency vehicles loading things in and out. Maybe you're getting snaps. We're being super gruesome now, but of like a body that's being put into the ambulance or something, some injury, some traumatic event. Maybe somebody who's got that like blanket wrapped around them, but you see, they've got this interesting scar on their cheek, like that you're able to capture. And kind of put them away. And also just like other cops are probably going to get in your way, right?
Right. Yeah, I like the idea of not only are you moving, but the environment's moving. And so you really just have like moments of time that you want to capture in any direction. You never know where to look and you never know what's changing around you. I like the idea of this guy providing like a film noir narration throughout the entire game, because it is a silly environment, but he can be given this whole serious like, someday the rain will come and wash the filth from the streets and all that kind of thing. And, or after the stage is done, he continues rolling in his little car and goes through like one of those seedy bars that he just kind of like slides down the bar on his motorized cart that he can't stop, just knocking all the glasses off like like he was sitting there in a film noir movie. Or he rolls through his office and gets a quick little blurb from some, femme fatale who's asking him for a favor or something. But
I think there could definitely be like a narrative, especially in between levels. But I think we both agree that the more serious this guy takes himself, the better. Like he's deadly serious about the whole scene, and he's deadly serious that he does not have a lot of time to spend on it.
And that he can't stop moving.
That's right. Like a guy.
He's like a shark detective.
That's right. Or else he dies. This is a good video game. I don't know if I want to do too much to it. I'm trying to think of, like, have you played like any sort of old adventure game, the way that as you kind of, move around objects or click objects, the characters usually have like something to say about just about everything in the environment.
Yeah.
I could definitely see taking these pictures, and if for like the example of the person with the blanket wrapped around him, like you take a picture of the scar and like, there's a suspicious scar on her cheek, or something like that.
But in like a very like needlessly poetic way, like obviously the city has left its mark on this innocent victim who's become a part of the filth that I've come to expunge,
Exactly. But like he the environment is dynamic, right? So anytime you take a picture of something, there's all these little snippets of some narratives or some narration from the detective that kind of makes it all feel really in theme. That's really cool.
Like, let's kind of brainstorm now that we have like a basic idea on the table. What kinds of locations? We got the back alley murder scene. What other types of places would you like this detective to roll through in his journey?
I think let's hit up some of the classics. You got to do like outside of a big old sort of conservative educational institution.
Okay.
Of some
with
sort.
The statue out front, the brass statue.
Exactly. Yeah, I can see that being particularly a fancy area,
or something during the day, like one of those spring break beach murders.
Oh yeah, very good. Or we could also do, as long as it's in that noir theme, like a Hollywood set.
Ooh,
would be a really good place to kind of, and a lot of it, excuse to put a bunch of fun stuff in there. I think to me, like, I would replay a level until I've literally found every piece of evidence in the level, right?
Replayability would be the most important thing, because, it'd be neat if you could, like, procedurally generate a level and a crime, so you always have new crimes to solve. But I also like this kind of authored experience like you would get in Pokemon Snap, where you're going through the same thing every time, you're having the same series of events happen, and so you can like learn how to perfectly, like Majora's Mask your way through this environment and take all the perfect pictures and try to like maximize your score and post it on a high score table or something. But the thing about the conviction at the end is that's kind of a binary, like either he's guilty or we don't have enough evidence, which might be like useful for like the progression marker. But I guess if you're replaying, you'd probably be more interested in chasing high scores at that point.
Or, I mean, another thing I think you have the opportunity of doing is you can maybe have sort of guilty parties for each crime, and then sort of the serial killer at the end, or like you find out it's a crooked cop or something, and there was actually tiny pieces of evidence in every single level. So now you have your sort of episodic thread and your meta narrative carrying you through.
It'd be interesting. Or what I like? There's what is that game called? Is it The Testament of Sherlock Holmes? It's the most recent of those Sherlock Holmes games, but
not sure.
In those games, you're going around solving crimes by picking up evidence from the crime scenes, and they give you a choice of who you want to convict, and they never tell you whether you got it right or wrong, which is like, oh,
wow.
I hope I followed those clues correctly. But I kind of like having the choice of, who you want to point to as the guilty party in this case.
Yeah, that's really interesting too. Like, you supply a bunch of evidence right at the end of every level, and what can essentially play out at that point is like the courtroom lawyer, like the prosecutor making their case against the person, showing all the exhibits, which are the pictures you took that kind of generate after you beat the level, and then seeing if maybe it's not even, it's a jury that's finding them guilty or not guilty.
Or if during a cross-examination, kind of like in Phoenix Wright, you would have to point to the photo that you took that refutes the piece of evidence that the person is pitching.
Yes.
But anyways, that is time on this one. So we're going to have to call that one there. And I do have a name for this one, a name that I am both proud and ashamed of. I want to call this one PhotoCop.
Oh, okay. I love it. Oh, our names are very similar this week.
Oh, good. Well, bring it on. I want to hear what you've got cooking this week.
So about a couple weeks ago, I think, by the time people listen to this, you tweeted out that everything is the Dark Souls of something. I wanted to make a Dark Souls-like game and combine it with a very popular medium, which is the first-person shooter.
Okay.
So imagine a first-person shooter that is Soulsian in it that you're, collecting things and banking them, but imagine a pace that is somewhere around the new Wolfenstein games, where it's mostly very methodical and then occasionally bombastic. You collect resources, and in this game, what's special about this game is you only get one gun. Okay? And this gun is like a weird biomechanical piece of technology that as you eviscerate your enemies with it, you're getting resources, and then you have to bank those resources to kind of access your workbench and be able to, kind of throw on parts and upgrade this gun. So you're essentially building this gun with all your, sort of expected things, fire speed, damage, reload time, all of that. But as you kind of build down the bio tree or the sort of mechanical tree, you're kind of making a different sort of weapon, whether that be, down the mechanical, you have like plasma shields and explosive rounds and energy-based weapons, or even more Call of Duty-ish stuff, whereas the bio is a little bit more, I don't know if you remember Stranger's Wrath? Or Bioshock, in it that it's like these, liquids and acid traps, poison fangs, all that sort of stuff. And of course, there's probably some combination of those things. And the only sort of progression marks I think you can get throughout the game is to, when you reach certain milestones, you'll be able to kind of save a recipe, right? And saving these recipes essentially allows you to have maybe 2 versions of this gun on you. When I say that, I mean it kind of can transform a la the weird thing that it is, but it takes several seconds to do so. So if you try and do that in the middle of combat, it's going to be a real panic moment for you of going, ooh, it's not doing it. So that is kind of it. You're hitting these milestones. The whole point is to kind of grow super attached to your weapon, make it feel really yours. In a way that you own, and also just have that level of sort of plotting difficulty that kind of the Soulsian things really make you feel like you own this character by the end of them. I mean, I think Bloodborne, in Bloodborne, for example, my love of the axe by the end was almighty.
Because you kind of stick with one weapon throughout the whole game, and that one you can anyways. All right, cool. Well, let's open the door on this one. Let's start the clock and talk about this. So I like the idea of building a character, but instead of like your character that you're building your weapon, and the weapon is really the thing that you kind of project the personality onto, so to speak. Yeah,
so many first-person shooters, they say that there's a character behind there, but you might as well just be a walking gun, right?
That's true. Yeah, and in games like Doom, Doom is so well known for like the double barrel shotgun or the BFG and all these like unique weapons that people, they talk about the weapons more than they talk about the Doom guy or whatever. He doesn't even have a name.
Yeah.
You talk about saving recipes and, getting to checkpoint markers and whatever. Is this a kind of single player experience like a Dark Souls, or is this a roguelike, like something that you would kind of regen every time and then kind of build up your gun a little bit easier the next time around
That's interesting. In my head, it's so hard not to look at the recent, Bethesda single player and be sort of inspired by Doom with this. I would imagine in my head we get a lot of the Soulsian and Bloodborne games have an interconnected world. I would love to be on a crazy space station and just have the, corridors filled with guys regenerate every time that I'm going to make this modification of my weapon. I think that there's more to be had with like ammo types and maybe how you get ammo, or the way you're forced to engage in like certain types of combat. I like the melee stuff that Doom did. So maybe you have to actually like really get in close and use your gun to quote extract, these resources from these creatures.
So I like the idea of having deeply customizable gun, and I can see kind of the natural propensity would be to play through the game multiple times, to experiment with these different weapon builds and everything like that. And so a story-driven experience would probably be, if people are wanting to replay this multiple times, the story bits would just kind of get in the way more than anything. So something that's more kind of experientially driven, like, Dark Souls and Doom, they have story, but they're mostly like just get in there and play. And that's great for replaying because there's not very much slowing you down at any point during the journey.
Yeah.
If this was something like a Dishonored, I could see that being a bit of a problem. Also, I mean, if this was like a roguelike, then you would have the chance to respec on every death, and you would have the chance to experiment a little bit more, but you would kind of sacrifice not ever like forming as close an attachment to your weapon because you're, not spending the same amount of like dozens of hours with, as if it were like a longer paced game.
Yeah, I don't know if the Souls games do this, but I certainly know Bloodborne there was something where you could kind of start investing down another tree at heavy cost, right? Like it was just a matter of farming it.
There's upgrade materials kind of scattered all throughout the game. And so if you find another weapon that you like, then you're more than welcome to start investing in that one as well. There's not really anything that prevents people from doing that other than just kind of a finite number of those upgrade resources, but they're usually abundant enough to at least let you max out 2 or 3 weapons.
Yeah, and so this is where I go back into that's why I sort of tried to bake in the idea of these, by the end of the game, a recipe that you can kind of switch between, because you're going to need to get your gun to a certain point, you're going to have to invest a certain amount of resources to get it that way. Then if you want to, say, like create a different version of that gun, you just have to have all the required resources of doing that build as well. That allows you then to switch between them. It's also like striking me when you talk about variety too, or that sort of social way that people play these harder games of discovery. Maybe there's something with, the right combination of stuff as you experiment actually do unlock bonuses or something, whether that's, damage or, this resource gaining thing where, you have to just kind of experiment and use that recipe book. And then all of a sudden you're telling your friends, hey, this is how you get the triple damage gun or whatever.
See, I think the real strength of this idea is the kind of personality that each player can give their own individual gun. And I would encourage staying away from saying like there is a best build, or saying this for this build you get a bonus,
right.
Because you want every playthrough potentially to be entirely different from anybody else's.
Yeah, I don't know how you'd pull it off, but I would certainly want the gun, depending on the resources I've added to it, to look increasingly elaborate and weird as well.
But to give you kind of a full range of abilities, have like kind of a whole Team Fortress 2 team built into, or the potential to be any one of those members, like that full range of diversity of weapon types. But
yeah,
I think one fun idea would be to, this is kind of like you start with a little tiny wimpy pistol or whatever, and by the end of it, you build it up to be this, enormous like Earthworm Jim super weapon.
Yeah.
It's kind of like raising a child in a way to grow to be an adult. I think it'd be funny if the gun starts to like achieve sentience at some point.
Oh yeah, that would be
and
really
so if
good.
you go down like a mechanical route, then it would become like Knight Rider. Or if you go through like the bio magic route, then it would become like a cognitive being.
Yeah.
Would start like a baby and would a few upgrades in, it would start making noise and moving on its own, and then before long, like it can have conversations with you or something.
Or certainly starts to make its own noises. And so you're kind of the blank slate, right? The gun is all the personality. I like that offloading. I wonder now, so now in my head, I'm picturing, even as you follow down the sort of mechanical route, maybe you kind of have this thing like Mega Man style, like your arm is slowly, like you have to insert it into it and really it's digging into your, flesh or whatever. And then the bio route, it's kind of venom or carnage, right? It's slowly eating into you and you're becoming the gun, right?
Yeah, just the difference between Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion.
There you go.
One thing that I would worry about is, you are kind of asking people to play through the entire game using one weapon, which might get monotonous over time. But you brought up earlier that there could be different ammo types, which could mix things up. And so you can, swap through multiple ammo types, but like it fires its bullets in like one specific way, or maybe it has like an alternate fire or something. Like I like the idea of paring it down so you like really, really super know this weapon, like, like it's your own body.
Sure. But, if you even get down to like say defeating an enemy is what garners your resources, but doing this sort of weird melee up close personal kill is what garners you ammo or the stuff to make ammo. You might find yourself going to one section of the space station to like harvest ammo because you know you need that particular ammo type to defeat the guys that you're dealing with in the place that you want to get.
So you can get your incendiary ammo and your ammo that can shoot through walls or the lightning ammo. I wouldn't want to like put big flashy effects on normal ammo because if every shot that you fired rain down this whole like big lightning storm, like that'd be cool for like 20 minutes. And then it would get really annoying that everything that you shot erupted into a lightning storm. So I do like the idea of having these kind of like special bullets that are that can grant these bigger kind of screen clearing effects, but are to be used sparingly.
You're definitely honing into, and I know we're coming up against our time, but I think you're right. What this is really, with one gun, you're really going to have to focus on how to make the variety really special.
All right, well, why don't you go ahead and give that one a name?
To be on the nose like you this week, I have tentatively named this game Gun Souls.
Okay. That is very on the nose.
The Dark Souls of guns. But maybe we could go weirder, like what you had said. Maybe we call it Gunbaby.
Gunbaby. I like that a lot. All right, we have one last submission. This comes from our listeners. And this is from Sam Quirke, who says, "Hi guys, great first show. I had a shower thought that turned into a game idea. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of what's out there, so ignore me if this one has already been done. That's okay, we always take it in different directions, even if it has been done." Sam continues to say, "What if instead of playing as an Ezio or an Agent 47, you're managing the security forces ranged against them? The premise of the game is to manage your security firm, take on contracts, and protect your clients. I imagine 3 stages of play. In the management stage, you're hiring, firing, promoting, or investigating your own forces and selecting new contracts. Next, you enter the staging phase, choosing your security setup for the scenario and taking into account the likely threats and the client's demands to potentially earn bonuses, e.g., keep your forces out of sight so the client isn't perceived as paranoid. Finally, you have the live phase, where the scenario plays out. I imagine things go third or first person here, where you can actively keep an eye out for threats, patch into cameras, and direct your forces to different positions. This should rarely turn into a standard shooter, as threats should be neutralized with minimum commotion, and you do run the risk of criminal charges if you are reckless. You're not Jack Bauer. Ideally, scenarios would play out differently each time your management actions would impact play. If you don't screen your staff effectively, you might end up with a mole on your team. It's just like last week. Push them too hard, they may become ineffective, quit, or take a bribe. In AC Brotherhood style, your employees can be trained up over time, but if they die, they stay dead. If they're proud and ambitious, they might get tired of your orders and become more likely to turn. So there's a risk-reward around putting your best men on the front line. It doesn't always have to be potential assassins or terror attacks either. It might be a theft or heist that you're trying to thwart, or stop a protest from getting violent. Let's go ahead and discuss that one. I think it's funny that this does seem to be so similar to the idea that I pitched last week.
It's
obviously,
cut from the cloth, yeah.
That one hasn't gone live yet, and so Sam wasn't riffing off of that specifically, but it's kind of like the opposite end of what I was saying. My team was people trying to like break into the bank, and his is trying to keep people like me from getting in.
Which is why we'd like to announce our new asymmetrical multiplayer game.
Yeah. Combining those two, that's a good idea. But anyways, let's start the clock on that one.
All right.
So first initial thoughts, this comes across like a tower defense type thing from the way that it's described. It reminds me of the kind of tower defense elements that they put into Assassin's Creed, or even more specifically like Star Fox Guard. Maybe a weird thing to bring up here, but like when he talks about switching between security cameras, that's kind of what you do in Star Fox Guard. You're switching between security cameras, so you kind of have that like discontiguous space, kind of like the Five Nights at Freddy's model, where you can like form a mental map of the location, but you can't see every space at every time. You kind of have to choose where you're looking, and there are blind spots in between cameras. So I think that part of it is really cool. As far as trying to thwart these hitmen or assassins or whatever, like that's where it gets interesting, because in tower defense, you're kind of trying to stop a wave of inexperienced foes coming through. Whereas in this one, it sounds like you're just trying to set up enough traps and clever countermeasures to thwart the actions of one smart enemy.
Right. I think the biggest hurdle here, and I really love the idea, Sam, so thank you for writing in. I think one of the biggest hurdles initially is the feeling of sort of what happens actively as the crime is happening. Because you imagine that to be scored against or to check it against it, you can't it's very difficult to fully stop the crime, right? It's about mitigating it.
Yeah, okay.
What I really like is the presumption that every video game company assumes that it's more fun to be the crime person as opposed to the people trying to stop it. But I wonder if that tower defense, for example, tower defense usually has a stream of sort of bad stuff coming in or happening that you're constantly dealing with. So I wonder if it's a matter of during the quote, like setup phase or the initial scouting phase before it goes into this, because it sounds like it turns into a boots on the ground event at some point. Where you're trying to stop things, if you're also trying to track this person and find out ultimately who the target is or what the goal of the crime is. Maybe that you go in not knowing, as opposed to a brief of like, so-and-so is going to try and steal money from this bank. So-and-so might be entering a bank to assassinate someone. They might be entering a bank to use the computers to transfer money rather than like stealing the money from the safe. How
about this? There's like one win-lose condition. That is kind of like the stronghold in any tower defense type of game. There's one person that you're protecting, or there's one like giant diamonds that the person's trying to steal. But along the way, they are disabling your security. They're killing your guards or whatever. They're stealing things from the tables. And so, that can be your scoring mechanic. You have one that is the win-lose, and then you have the scoring, like you want to cause as little loss of property or loss of life as possible.
That's what you're scored against. The second version of scoring is just the insurance bill at the end of each event.
Yeah, kind of like a dangerous golf or something. But one thing that kind of was interesting to me when I was thinking about this, like what if this was like in Batman Arkham Asylum? I always thought it was super clever how the Joker, when you're breaking into Arkham Asylum, like the Joker can't see into the room, but he has like heart monitors on the guards. And so when you take out a guard, he says like, oh, one of you's gone limp or whatever. And then he points the other guards in the direction that he thinks Batman is. And so this level of kind of like inferred knowledge, or you can have a couple of security cameras and see if you get lucky. But I like having like multiple sources of information. You have some like sound and movement monitors, you have guard heart rate monitors, you have a couple of cameras. And so between all of these different things, in like a Papers, Please kind of way, trying to assimilate all of this information into like a picture and try to, wrap your head around where this person is at any given point. You try to kind of like command your guards to exterminate this otherwise invisible force.
It harkens almost to a little bit of the gameplay of Battleship, which is a game that could use updating, to be fair. But at first it's kind of like, okay, where is anything occurring? And I actually really like the idea of the heart monitors tied into some of the stuff that was a little bit later in Sam's email in terms of, knowing which guard might betray you.
Mm-hmm.
To see if like someone might be lying to you as they report in. Their heart rate is a little elevated when they're saying this all clear. I don't believe them.
He might have a gun to his head or something.
Yeah, exactly. So there is that kind of, maybe there needs to be this additional layer of the way the Joker communicated with the guards. You can kind of bark orders at these guards and get a feel for what their behavior is in these different scenarios.
Or what if, and this is a kind of a different thing entirely, but I think about Hitman, and the thing that makes Hitman cool is that the Hitman can dress as anybody and can blend into the crowds. What if this was like, there's a game on Game & Wario that's about like finding the spy in the crowd or something, and he's trying to steal like 3 trinkets, and every time he picks something up, like it kind of gives you a snapshot of like a portion of the screen. And so you try to like start to take notes as like, okay, who is in all these pictures? Who keeps popping up in these?
Yeah.
Or Spy Party, where, all these characters, there's one of them that's controlled by another person and he has, multiple objectives to complete throughout this level. And you're trying to catch this assassin or this spy during these different phases because you kind of know what he'll be doing, but you don't know who it's going to be. And so you can use this kind of like circumstantial evidence to pinpoint the person that you think is the assassin. And, you don't want to kill your party guests. You don't want to make a scene, but you do want your guards to be able to take this guy out.
Yeah, that's really cool. And like playing off of that, as you're sort of reviewing that footage, you're going to notice like, the kitchen knife is missing. I know that he's passed through the kitchen, right? So like maybe I should be looking for chefs or whatever.
And when a guard dies, then you can see on the map where he died. And, you can say, everybody go in that direction. Nobody set up a perimeter. Don't let anybody in or out. You can turn on the camera that's over there and you can pay close attention. Or then you see somebody die on the other end of the map and you're like, okay, who could have, what route could they have taken? Let's rewind the video from this hallway and see if anybody passed through here.
Right. It's almost a time-based game, right? Where you want to stop this thing as quickly as possible. So the sooner you're able to correctly identify it, you'd obviously have to disincentivize somebody just spamming a guess, right? So horrible consequences if you get it wrong. But like if you get it right, all right. You had this mechanic too, the sort of your best people and betrayal. Mm-hmm. That's kind of interesting to manage. You're going to need some sort of roster of people, and now we're going to, like we had talked about before, I assume you're going to get paid for these missions, right, by your clients, and then you're going to have some sort of management over like what technology that you're like, do you always have a standard set of technology that you're guessing at, or is it the more technology you kind of invest in, the sort of
you can
more
probably buy more
get
from successful jobs and whatever, because Sam does mention in the email kind of the first stage of play is that more kind of managerial side of things, the hiring, the firing, and promoting, and probably investing in further technologies. But yeah, probably like if you were able to thwart an assassination with just one guard, then you barely spent anything and you can take that huge sum of money back, or you can set up auto defense turrets. And
as the person's trying to make their escape, that could also be interesting. Right. You finally are in a chase sequence, like, okay, the president's dead, but now you have to actually catch the guy. Because we know who it is, and you get almost no money from this mission, right? Super botched, but you have still one last saving grace.
Yeah, so at least you're not completely like, game overed.
Yeah. And, if you're ever looking for any hints, Sam, check bald people with barcodes on their head. Huge indicator.
I wonder how much Hitman scans for if he goes down to the neighborhood market.
That's true. Or what comes up.
Probably just 47, isn't it?
I guess so.
Anyways, that is time for that one. So we got to think of a name. Sam, in the email. And we're okay accepting names from the emails as well. We might choose to change them. We might choose to keep them. But he tentatively calls it security in all caps with an exclamation mark at the end, which is kind of a fun name. I like that.
I like that. We've had a lot of fun. I feel like it fits with the theme of the episode, which is at the end of each game. It's kind of lighthearted.
Yeah. All right, and that is our 3 game pitches for the day. Q, why don't you tell them where they can send us more pitches for future shows?
You can write us at playwrightcast@gmail.com, or you can go to playwrightcast.com/pitch, or you can, just go to the website. You'll be able to find it. It's a click or two away.
We have all of our podcasts up on the website, and we have links to some of the other podcasts that you and I contribute to. We'd like to give a special thank you to PROTODOME for letting us use our theme song, that is Hello World, from his album Blue Noise, an excellent album and an excellent discography. PROTODOME, super cool, has some great chiptune music, definitely worth a check out. So thank you for joining us. We will see you next week.